the faceless question, it's because statistically, people connect to people or people connect to animals. And really, what's fascinating is that people connect to eyes. Yes. So trends come and go so fast, which is why every single Friday I push out the content that says, here's what you're posting next week. I don't say next month. I say, like, you got to do it now if you're going to do it, right? If you're a small account, so let's say under 2,000 followers, you're a pretty small account. People don't care about you. People care about what you can.
Nikki May is a social media agency owner who works with brands who want to infuse their personalities into their content. In our conversation today, Nikki talks about the biggest mistakes new authors make when it comes to posting content online. She gives beginner-friendly content ideas, especially to those people who are intimidated to talk to camera. And there are so many other things that I learned from her, little tips and little tricks that I will definitely be applying into the content that I create. So I'm excited for you to meet her. Let me introduce you to Nikki. Nikki, could you explain the turning points that led you to the point of becoming a social media agency owner?
Yeah, absolutely. So it was actually by accident. This is not something that I thought I was going to be doing. I knew that I was going to be an entrepreneur because in third grade, I started gluing little puff balls together and selling them. And I was like, this is fun. I like running my own little business. And so it took me, 20 plus years to get here. But what happened is I started working with a company, not in marketing, not social media, nothing like that. And then the owner of that company sent out an email and said, I need help with social media, just like 5 hours a week. And at that point, I had just married my husband and he's a travel nurse. And so we were going to be traveling consistently. And couldn't find like a remote job. At that point, it wasn't very popular. And I said, well, 5 hours is better than nothing and I can figure it out. So I applied to that. It actually turned into a full-time marketing and social media job. And I found out that I really, really loved it. And kind of fast forward, I figured out a lot of stuff. I made a lot of mistakes, but I started my own agency once I felt like I had gotten, a knack for it and knew what was going on.
What would you say are the three main reasons why somebody should focus on developing a strong social media presence?
So I think that a lot of people don't understand marketing. Like when you start your business, you are really good at whatever you started, right? That's why you did it. You're really good at recruiting or you're really creative or something like that. But if your background isn't marketing, you might not know that it can take 7, 35, 100 touch points with somebody before they ever buy from you. So social media, yes, it can lead to direct sales, but really what it is a nurture platform. You are constantly connecting with your community and you are doing what we call touch points enough times that people trust you and then want to buy from you. So sometimes people think, well, maybe I post too much or something like that, but not every single person who follows you sees every single piece of content you put out, right? And let's say it takes somebody 10 times to see your face or your business before they buy from you. That means you have to post a lot of content, whether that's a story or just a static post of you or a reel. You need to be putting out content so that people can constantly be seeing you. I think that trust is rapidly declining. People don't really know if they buy from a company or buy from a service if it's going to be everything that's promised. So if you, as a person, I'm always against faceless accounts, but if you show up as the owner of your company and are very honest and you admit your mistakes and you show the behind the scenes of what you're doing and why you really care, you're building that trust so that people actually want to support you. And then my last reason is that if you do it right, you're going to reach people who never would have heard of you. And that's really important.
So you spoke about the importance of lots of touch points, but there's so many different ways that you can post content on social media. There's long form content, there's short form content. Would you explain what long form and short form content is, as well as maybe talking about the objectives behind why somebody might choose either long form or short form content?
Yeah, this is actually a really interesting question because we're seeing a mix right now. So long form, and typically when people think long form, they think YouTube videos, right? It's a you can tell like a longer story, or you can be super educational. You can be walking somebody through something with all the touch points. But right now, while short form used to just be like attention grabbing, you're building engagement, you're putting it out there. I think it's the people who can basically take this long form, like it should have been a story and it should have taken 10 minutes, but they can somehow turn that into a series of short form that is still attention grabbing. So people who can follow that long form format, it's actually going to really help your short form content. So I don't think there's a right or a wrong. Some people like to have the space to just kind of sit down and for 10 minutes talk to the camera or show a process. And I think that's awesome because there's people who want to see it. YouTube is a huge platform and they have this. And now TikTok is allowing, for you to turn your phone sideways and to watch 10-minute content. So there's not a right or a wrong. It's really just what is going to work for you? What are you comfortable with? And what do you feel really authentic doing?
Well, on that, let's say you have a debut author who now becomes one of your clients. What would you suggest they create and on which social media platform? And then one more additional question. What if this author doesn't want to talk to camera? What if they want to be faceless? Because you said you're against faceless content, which is so interesting to me. So tell us why.
I am. Okay, so your first question, I would recommend that they start sharing on TikTok. TikTok, I think, still has the fastest growth avenue that I've been seeing across clients. But if you're anti TikTok, Instagram would be my second recommendation. What I would say though is if you're creating videos, why not just share them to both, and see what happens and see what takes off. The faceless question, it's because statistically, people connect to people or people connect to animals. And really what's fascinating is that people connect to eyes. So it can be a person or an animal or whatever. Kind of going off on a tangent, but it's something that I think is so fascinating is a marketing company was doing this research on, it was this coffee, what is it called? Like a coffee nook at a business, right? And basically, if you finish the coffee, you're supposed to start a new pot of coffee. That's just like general etiquette, right? But people weren't doing it. So they put signs above it, no face, no nothing, that just said, hey, remember, if you finish it, start a new pot. Nothing worked until they just put a pair of eyeballs next to that sign. Not real, like it's just a picture of eyes, but then people consistently started doing it. Like your eyes are so, so important. And that's why I'm anti-faceless account. The thing is, a lot of people want to do faceless because they're not comfortable, like you said, in front of the camera. The only way to get comfortable is to do it, is to put yourself in the uncomfort. You're not growing if you're staying comfortable. And it's so, so important for people to see your face, see your eyes, and just connect with you as a human being over just some faceless account that shows their book.
And as an author, like, I totally hear you. I never thought about this, but you mentioning the eyes, that is such a powerful tool and tip, because even if you're writing, like, and romance is my thing, like that's often the connection. That's where the spark starts. That's where people can see into somebody else's soul and they can say things without saying things. So,
Right.
wow, good tip there. Now, could you give us maybe 3 beginner-friendly content ideas? Maybe something that is so simple that somebody who's always wanted to be faceless, that they could try. It doesn't seem too intimidating for them.
If you're nervous to show your face, what I recommend is to just start with B-roll content. And so when I say B-roll, you're not talking to the camera, you're not acting any certain way. It's just you're recording kind of behind the scenes what's going on. So I could set up my camera right now and I could record myself working on my laptop. Or I could set up my camera and I could record myself making my coffee. Anything like that. So it's just what you're normally doing. You don't have to look perfect, right? Because it's not right up on your face. You're not saying anything. You just have to do what you're already doing, right? And then just putting text on the screen. I think that's the easiest way to start. And when I have clients that are nervous about that, that's always the prompts that I get them until they start doing little skit things. Like, so then I'll tell them, okay, now just act upset. Like just cover your face and act upset for the text I'm going to put on the screen. So just very, very basic acting. And there's a lot of trends that go around that just need B-roll and text on the screen. And I actually share a lot of free trending content on my account. So if you don't know what to post, I can help you with that. A lot of it, you don't have to interact with the camera. You just need some kind of video where you're in it. If you are comfortable being on camera, then I would recommend that you tell your founder story or your origin story. Why did you decide to start this business? Why did you decide to write that book? What happened in your past that led you to where you are now? We talked about building trust, and this is a great way to do it and to let people know who you are, right? And then the last one, I think people get really nervous about this one, but pro tip, it is actually the fastest way to grow your account is to be very controversial. When I say controversial, I don't mean you have to take a stance on like politics or religion or something crazy like that. You just need to know in your niche, what is something you could say that is gonna get people to argue in the comments? And you don't even have to defend yourself. You don't have to fight because I guarantee you people are gonna be fighting with each other in your comments. And I'm not saying that like that's what you really want, but like I said, it doesn't have to be something crazy. It can just be like mentioning Tesla. Like you're not even taking a side. We're just mentioning something and letting people give you their opinions because people want to give you their opinions. So controversial statements will help you grow faster. Just know you might face a little bit of backlash in your comments.
Is there something wrong with me that I thought when you said, and the last one, and I was like, please don't say dancing, please don't say dancing. And when you said controversial, I was like, who? Why does that sound better than dancing?
Honestly, I'm the same. Like, so I socially dance. Me and my husband, we go out dancing at least once a week.
Mm.
I
Oh,
cannot
nice.
dance in front of the camera. I can't do
Mm.
it. I won't. And I'm like, this is my whole life, and I'm so uncomfortable doing it, and I love doing it, in real
Mm.
life. So I'm right there with you. Not for me.
So when you spoke about trends, that's actually how I came across your content, is because for me, I did this 30-day social media challenge because I've been off socials for 5 years. And like this year, I came back and I was like, Instagram, TikTok, what are you guys? And
Yeah.
so I just like started with what I thought it was like 5 years, what was 5 years ago, what was happening on Instagram. I
Oh
don't
boy.
think TikTok was even, I mean, it was there, but like it was really just the kids that was using it. And then I tried creating like that old school content, and then sort of trends started entering my feed. And I was like, oh, this is amazing because I don't have to think. It's just like, do
Yeah.
this with B-roll. And I was like, yeah. And that's how I came across your content. But for me, getting exposed to trends was completely new. So would you mind
Mm.
explaining what trends are? Because I'm sure a lot of people in the audience are also like, what?
Yeah. So trends are something that basically span across a ton of industries, right? So it's something that you can take and make it specific for your business, but it only lasts for a short period of time. So trying to think of one that came up recently was the unimpressed one. So you just have sunglasses on and you look just very unimpressed. We're talking about B-roll here. Like you're doing nothing, you're just sitting there and you're like unimpressed. Okay. And then the whole point is to be ironic. And so some people started doing it at like NASCAR races and they would be unimpressed and say, well, personally, I would just drive the car faster. And then some people would do it on a baseball game and say, personally, I would just hit the ball over the fence. Like that's the text that's going on your screen. So it's something that is super easy to film. They're normally no longer than 7-10 seconds, and you just make it fit for your business. So it's really, really easy to jump on. It helps with those touch points that we talked about. If people need 35 touch points from you, that's a lot of content that you're putting out. So it helps with that, but it is not the best way to actually get leads and sales. It is really just a way to nurture your audience and make sure they don't forget your face.
That is such a good point, because what I found on Instagram more so than TikTok is that there was no conversion. It was
Yeah.
like people who watched my content watched it, and maybe
Mhm.
a couple of new people would like it, but it didn't create any new followers or engagement at all. TikTok, I think, like you said, it's a lot more approachable and people actually follow and comment. And I'm like, nice. But Instagram was very different.
Yeah, Instagram, I always say, is the hardest platform to grow on. For some reason, people are really stingy about who they follow over there or who they engage with. And it's become more of just a vanity metric of showing how amazing your life is. Whereas TikTok is much more authentic behind the scenes. It's a lot of people talking to the camera and just saying whatever they want to say, right? And so it's built a completely different reputation. You can definitely still grow on Instagram. Right now, I'm growing much quicker on Instagram than anywhere else. Your
Okay.
trends are great. They can help you grow. They can help you get awareness for your book, for your brand, for your personal brand, whatever you're doing. But it's really not going to be the way that you convert and get your leads and your followers.
Maybe you're different because you're teaching us all how to do it. We're like, we're not getting any success help. Anyway, I will link your Instagram in my description for anybody who wants to check it out because it has been incredibly helpful to me. But on that, I saw one of the trends that you posted, which I think was about like 3 months old. And I was like, this looks fun. I know you said earlier on that it's got to be timely, but could you just speak to the importance of timeliness?
Yes. So trends come and go so fast, which is why every single Friday I push out the content that says, here's what you're posting next week. I don't say next month. I say, like, you got to do it now if you're going to do it, right? And so even these trends that I find, sometimes I have the time to film them and send them to my team to edit and get them posted. But typically, even if I film the trend and then it's been 2 weeks and like it wasn't able to go out, I won't post it because at that time it's already dead. So what happens is you kind of have this graph and it goes like this. Okay. So you have like the early trend adopters and their content's going to get pushed really high. And then you have like when most people join up here, and then you have the people that are joining like a month
Yeah.
after it's already started when it's on its way out. Now, what happens is it doesn't hurt your account to do that, but imagine you're scrolling. You've seen this trend over and over and over, right? You know it's on its way out. And then somebody else posts the trend. What are you doing? You're swiping right by it because you've seen it too many times. You don't want to watch it again. So, really, it's going to hurt your watch rate because you weren't timely with it, which makes social media difficult because it is something that you can plan evergreen content for, and you can ignore trends, and then it doesn't matter when your content goes out because it's going to work for you. It's going to work whenever. It's not seasonally specific. But if you want to jump on trends, you have to be willing to kind of rework your calendar and just push things aside to film your content in that moment because it's going to disappear in a few weeks.
Okay, now here's a lazy question. Let's say, for example, you have your content calendar and you've looked at all of the trends for next week and you're just like, oh man, these sound cool for everyone but me. My goal
Mhm.
is touch points with my current audience. Can you do a trend from 3 months ago with the idea of it just being a touch point? Or would you say rather do something else?
I wouldn't personally. I wouldn't recommend it. So, talking about touch points, probably what I would do instead, stories, right? Hop in your stories and talk to people. That's a great way because only people who care about you are watching your stories anyway. Let's be so real right now. Like, you don't really care about anyone's stories that you don't care about, right? So anytime you hop in your stories, that's great. And side note, it is the best place to sell. So when you launch your book, that's where you sell it, is LinkedIn, Instagram stories. But if you need something to go out on your feed, I would just post a photo or do a photo dump and say, this is what I did last week. And the thing is that, yeah, it might not be directly related to your book that you're writing, but it's related to you and it's building that authenticity and that trust. And maybe you can say, I went to this place with my kids, and someone's going to comment and say, oh my gosh, I love that place. I love taking my kids there too, right? So I think photos, a photo dump, or just a photo and saying a win in your book, or like, I just finished the last chapter, I just got my first round of edits back, or something like that, is actually going to be more impactful than trying to jump on a trend too late.
Oh, that's powerful. But you mentioned the feed. This is such an interesting question for me to ask. How important is the aesthetic of the feed? Because let's say, for example, you've posted a couple of reels and it just looks beautiful. You've got this aesthetic and but one video got like 3 views, which somehow can happen, and the other one gets 500, and then the next one gets 120, and then this one gets 2,000. And deep down,
Mhm.
you're like, well, I would rather delete everything and just keep the 2,000, but it will mess with my aesthetic. So, how important is aesthetic of feed? And are people looking at the aesthetic, or are they more looking at the vanity metrics like the view count?
This is a great question because a lot of people in my industry will harp on how vanity metrics aren't important. And I'm probably one of the only people who says they definitely are because people are vain, like it sucks to say, but it is true and they care about that stuff. So your vanity metrics are important. What I recommend though is don't delete anything because and it's not about the aesthetic of your feed, but my first reel that went viral when I worked in like the influencing side went viral 3 weeks after I posted it. It did terrible, like 200 views. And honestly, it was like a really personal reel and I was like, I expected that. And then it just took off and went viral and I got 8,000 followers. So you really have no idea. It can happen. So I just leave everything alone. As far as the aesthetic of your feed, I that one's kind of hard. I think it does matter. I think it's nice if someone comes to your page and is like, I know exactly what to expect. Her content's pretty similar. Her reel covers are pretty similar. I think it helps with conversion. There's no actual science that kind of backs that up. That's just how I feel because that's what I do. If I go to someone's page and I'm like, oh, I get it, I'm more likely to follow them. I would leave everything alone though, just because you don't know. And then I would spend a little bit of time with your feed. It's, I think, a little bit easier with a business. So, like, I'll get photo shoots done, and then I know my feed's going to be aesthetic because they're all from the same shoot and the same colors and everything like that. But I will say on my influencing side, I stopped trying to have an aesthetic feed, and that's when I blew up. And I think the reality was that it was more authentic to who I was and what I was sharing. And when you're building a personal brand, I would say that authenticity is far more important than when you're building kind of a business brand. And so for you as an author, I would say it probably doesn't matter too much, but I would say that your bio probably matters more and the content that you're putting out. So you want your content to be repetitive. So if someone is scrolling through, they say, "Oh, I get it. She posts about this a lot." Right? It's not just like a trend and then randomly this and randomly a vlog. Like it's too much. People who are really big on social find what works and they just do it over and over and over again. And then their audience knows what to expect. And that's going to work a lot better than the aesthetics.
Okay, well, on that, what would you say are the three biggest mistakes that debut authors might make when it comes to talking about their books? Because when you set up the repetitive content, the
Mhm.
first thing that came to my mind was this one author who I feel almost spams me with, like, buy my book. And I'm like, oh, don't be so desperate.
Yeah, that's not the repetitive content that
Yeah,
we want to see.
glad we
No.
covered that.
So what I would say, like the most common mistakes are probably sharing too much about your life that's unrelated to your book. So trying to kind of balance this out, what I recommend is if you're a small account, so let's say under 2,000 followers, you're a pretty small account. People don't care about you. People care about what you can offer them. Yes, you can still show inside your life what you're doing this weekend, but it has to relate to why they followed you in the first place, right? So if you're talking about writing a book and you have a ton of other writers who are following you because they're interested in your journey, everything you post needs to be about that. Now, once you're a little bit bigger, I would say 5 to 10,000 plus followers, then you can start being a little bit off the wall. This is what we did this week, and it's just that. And it has nothing to do with your book because the bigger you are, the more people want to see the behind the scenes of you. So when you're starting out posting too much unrelated, that's kind of a no-go because like I said, your content can't be repetitive that way. This next mistake is just pushing your book without any storytelling weaved into your content. So for instance, if you, like you said, someone's coming out and just like, buy this book, buy this book, buy this book. But if someone's coming out and saying, I can't believe I just finished my book. It took me 5 years and 3 rounds of X, Y, and Z and whatever, like you're telling the story and how you overcame everything, that's far more hitting than just buy my book. So I feel like I say behind the scenes all the time, but really that's what people want to see. So show the behind the scenes, show you writing. And one format that works really well across all industries that we found is saying like, here's the obstacle and here's how you overcame it over and over and over. So as long as you can use that, it works. So for me, I use that with my dad said no when my husband asked to marry me. We got married anyway, it's like, here's the obstacle. Here's how we overcame it. We just did it, and that went viral. And then I started playing with that across different clients' accounts and it worked. So the more you're like, they said no, they said I couldn't do it. I thought I couldn't do it, but I did it. Like that works. And I would say try to do that with as much of your content as possible. And then the last mistake I would say that's being made is not actually building your community. So not going in and responding to comments or not commenting on other people's content, because the whole point, like I said, of social media is nurture and that community. And when you build a community because you want to support them, they want to support you too. And that helps a lot.
Okay, but that last point made a lot of sense. And I can't be the only person who felt incredibly anxious when you said that, because what I found is, doing these podcasts, YouTube videos, it's been amazing. But then afterwards, I like to create clips that I share to social media. But then I feel like a responsibility to keep engaging with people post interview.
Mhm.
And I just get like so anxious with all of the communication on the
Yeah.
platforms, and then I see the person's there, and then I'm like, I don't know how to do this. It feels like, how do you handle that? Because I mean, I don't even reach out to like authors or people who are in the same sort of niche as me, just for that reason of me feeling like completely overwhelmed.
Yeah. So honestly, engagement is one of the hardest parts of what we do as an agency because it is so time consuming. But what we do is set a timer for 20 minutes and we go onto a platform. And if somebody commented on anybody's stuff, we respond and then we go to their page and comment on their stuff. Then we go back to ours. We respond to a comment, go to the commenters page, respond on there. If there's time left over, we'll watch a few stories and we'll engage with anything we want to there, or we'll scroll through the feed and engage with anything we want to there. But once that timer goes off, we're done. We're out of there.
That's so helpful. Thank you. I feel literally, because I haven't been on social media since that challenge. Like, I think it's been like over a month, because I was just like, that was so
No.
much. I just, ooh, and my poor friend keeps sending me all of these things. And now she started messaging me directly because she's like, yo, you're not
Yeah.
on the platforms anymore. But thank you. That timer really helps.
Mhm.
What is a book, or maybe two books, that you've read recently or ever that have moved you or made you smile?
There's two that I'm obsessed with and I recommend to everybody that I know, and I read them every year, every other year. The first is The Storyteller. Do you want me to explain what the book is about, or am I just
Oh,
name dropping? Okay.
yeah. That
Great.
sounds amazing. Yes, like, wow, I feel like I should know this.
Oh my gosh. Okay. So The Storyteller is by Jodi Picoult. She is my favorite author. I love her. I adore her. I absolutely love that she writes her books from multiple people's perspectives, right? So it's not just from one character, it flips back and forth. And it's always about something kind of controversial. And she, as an author, is not taking a stand, but she writes from two different people's perspective. And I think it is liberating. It's amazing to read from the different perspectives. So The Storyteller is about a granddaughter of somebody who survived the Holocaust. And so you have the granddaughter's perspective of what her grandma has told her, you have the grandma's perspective going through a concentration camp, and you have the guard's perspective at the concentration camp. And it is horrible and makes you cry, but it is amazing. All of her books are amazing, but that one's really amazing. And then the other one, which is actually very timely because we're recording this on 9/11, which in the US is a big deal,
Oh my gosh.
is The Girl He Used to Know. And 9/11 plays some part in that book. I did not even plan that when I thought of this, but it's just a love story, but it's about a girl who has autism and like her journey to find love, but she's very high on the spectrum, and so she thinks that no one else can tell, and basically she's trying to find her fit. But it's so good. I read that in one sitting, and I was on a plane, and I literally cried. So yeah.
Oh my word. Okay, those sound fantastic. Well, Thank you so much. If anybody wants to find you, where would you recommend that they go?
So Instagram is probably the place that I'm on the most, and my handle is just Social Blueprint LLC. But it's like that everywhere, so you can find me anywhere.
Thank you so much, Nikki.